Welcome to today's edition of Corporate Learning Dialogues, a YouTube channel program sponsored by Unikemia. Unikemia is an organization based in Madrid, Spain, dedicated to professional development in business management. In Unikemia, we have the conviction that the continuous training of professionals in organizations must follow the pace of new technological opportunities and changes in the environment. We work to create an unbeatable learning experiences that foster growth of professionals at the forefront, capable of converting knowledge into effective organizational skills to face corporate challenges in a changing environment. Today, we have Walter Fullam as our guest. Walt was the Regional Director of Continuing Education and Outreach at the Pennsylvania State University, based at Penn State Berk, where he was also the Campus Director of Continuing Education and Outreach. He has been with Penn State since he graduated from Lebanon Valley College in 1980 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English Language and Literature. Fullam also earned a Master of Science degree in Management from Penn State and a Professional Development Certificate in Distance Learning from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. During that time, he received the university's 2011 Outstanding Adult Recruitment Award. This award recognizes outstanding work with adult learner population and is given annually by Penn State's Commission of Adult Learners. Welcome to our program, Walt, and thank you for accepting our invitation. With that, we'll jump into the first question. Could you describe your job as Director of Continuing Education and Outreach, either regionally or locally? Regionally, it includes the 20 campuses of Penn State, and locally, Penn State Berks. What is it like to serve a population of about 13 million in the state of Pennsylvania? They say that 96% of Pennsylvanians have a campus location within a 30 miles radius.
Morning, and thank you, Paul, so much for inviting me to be part of this program. It's a real honor for me. Probably should add, I've been retired a couple of years now from Penn State, so this will be kind of reflecting on things that happened during my career. But really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. It was a very rewarding career, worked with a lot of great people. And I just thought, before directly answering your questions, it might be good to just provide a little bit of background on a couple of things so folks aren't confused. One is Penn State is one of the land-grant universities in the United States. Each state has one land-grant university, which has a specific mandate to provide education for all citizens, not just students who are, aspire to an undergraduate or a graduate degree. So it's a charter, the way the university is chartered to do that. So that's the short description. How that is carried out is much more complicated, but continuing education was one of the units within the university that was responsible for doing that. Another really important point, I think, for your members of your audience to understand, if they're going to comprehend what I'm talking about in some ways, is one of the really unique things about Penn State is that it is, as we always used to say, Penn State is one university geographically dispersed. And what that meant was, unlike your universities in New York or California, or I think actually, frankly, any other state, university is very centrally organized from an academic standpoint. So, and everything is quality controlled, even non-credit classes, everything had to be approved so that there was a real high level of uniformity across the system, generally speaking, and also a real focus on academic quality. So I think that's important for folks to realize. So you had University Park campus, which of course has a statewide mission mandate, but then there were the campus systems, as you talked about, across the state. Each one has a geographic area that is responsible for recruiting undergrad students, for fundraising through development and through continuing education in those Those geographic boundaries were pretty sacrosanct for most of the units. Continuing education, though, just by virtue of what we did, we were much better at working across the different units and the different boundaries. And I guess the last thing I just say in regard to that is, I don't think in regard to the mandate for being a land grant university, I don't think that Penn State always necessarily leveraged the knowledge internal to the university in ways that benefited the state in other ways. And it wasn't anything specifically that anyone decided, hey, we're just not going to do that. It was just more, it wasn't the area of focus. And I think the president who recently retired, Eric Barron, recognized that. He really was, one of his areas of focus was to really get the university to pay more attention to the land grant mission, which of course, being someone responsible for helping carry that out, I was very pleased with. And probably his greatest accomplishment in that area is something we'll talk about in a little bit, and that's the creation of the Invent Penn State program for spurring entrepreneurship across the state. So anyway, sorry, there's a little bit of background. In terms of what I did or what continuing education folks at the campuses do, I think very broadly, our mission was to connect the campus and university to our local communities. And that's, again, a real strength of the university, because if you look at a map, State College, University Park, where the main campus is really not close to anything, not close to major cities or major population centers. So the way most people would really experience the university, other than knowing someone who went to University Park to go to school, was through their local campus and through, to a certain extent, programs that were offered in continuing education. So I think that connecting function was probably, to me, that was our top priority. However, again, in terms of a challenge, you couldn't always monetize that. You couldn't always say I made X number of dollars from going out and visiting some heads of corporate training or education, or even executives within a program, although we were building relationships there that hopefully would pay off later. But so some of the ways that we specifically carried out the mission was through youth programs. So we connected people before they got to college with camps, did a lot of camps, really focused on science and technology. We really felt that was an area where we could really play a key role. And then academic enrichment programs, offered a number of programs for students who were in high school who wanted to be better prepared when they got to college. So we offered some programs, SAT prep classes, and some things like that. Big area, and this is what my talk will be, the answers I guess I'll be providing today, really focused on professional development programs, which were skill building programs for people who had either graduated from college or had not gone to college, but needed to learn new skills or pick up some new education or additional education in order to perform their jobs. We also were involved with degree completion programs for adults in the workforce who had jobs and either aspired to different jobs that would require an education, or in order to move up within their own area where they were working, needed a degree. And then we did a variety of things, again, from a broad standpoint, and supporting economic development through trying to provide access to applied research within the university, which wasn't really education, but there could be some educational spin-offs from that. So I don't know if that answers your question well enough.
Yeah, no, it's I didn't realize it was such a broad-based, but I knew because I was there. I mean, you were taking care of the kids on summer camps, taking care of teachers in the community, taking care of relationships with the workforce development board. I remember all that, so it was interesting.
Well, I remember, Paul, one of the first times we met on campus when you had come was, I was pretty sweated because I had just come from a summer camp, and I was in the process of carting a whole bunch of books for teachers for a class that was this was a Friday, I think a Friday afternoon. I was carting a whole bunch of books into a classroom. So they were there for Monday morning for a class. And I think you looked at me and said, "What are you doing?"
All right. Well, let's move on. What are the most significant challenges that you faced promoting continuing education and outreach at Penn State?
Sure. Well, again, over the span of years, everything changed. The workplace changed so much, and the educational needs and what the demands were from companies and from individuals changed quite a bit. But the bigger revolution, so to speak, was just everybody and anybody could offer education, specifically with the advent of online classes. Geography was no longer an issue, and people had many different kinds of options for learning. When I started, it was kind of funny when microcomputers came out, people actually came to the campus and said, "Hey, can you create a certificate of classes, and we'll send people, through 4 or 5 classes to learn about microcomputers." It's back when you needed to know the operating systems and how to program and all that. That's not the case anymore. Everybody wants to know things right away and be able to apply things right away. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I think I faced toward the end of my career, and my colleagues that are still working there face, which is the immediate practical application, and then the proof of what you taught. Is that going to make a difference? I just paid X number of dollars for this class, and I want to know that this employee is going to be more productive, or the employee themselves say, "Hey, I just paid for this. I want to know that this is going to result in a promotion. It's going to result in me getting another job." So that's very different. It's no longer just, "Well, hey, went to Penn State, I got the certificate. Okay, we'll give you a promotion, or we'll give you a new job here." And then I think it's a different value proposition, I think, that the companies and students are looking for. The other thing that's interesting is that we don't really have the mass markets for education, for kind of standardized education. People are, getting back to my previous point, more interested in things that are a little more specific. And you don't always have the audience size to offer a class as we traditionally might have in the past, where we generally wanted to have 10 people in the seats if we were going to make a class worthwhile, be able to pay our instructor and pay our direct costs and pay our overhead. So one of the things that we did, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, was utilize and leverage the campus system and technology to have a number of campuses collaborate, where there might be only a small number of people in each campus service area where we could work together. So it's probably not answering the question as best I can, but
well, these are real challenges, though. I mean, I think you mentioned keeping pace with technology. Employers and employees want immediate reward, and then keeping pace with demand. So, which were the most successful professional development courses you offered at Penn State in terms of enrollments and impact?
Sure. I have a couple of examples here that hopefully will kind of reflect some of the different things that we did. And it's interesting, toward the end of my career, again, when I would tell people what I did, and it's, "I don't know how long you've been there." "Oh, 30 years. And they would look at me, especially younger people, kind of aghast, like, how can anybody do something, for that long a period of time? And the interesting thing to me was I was always doing different, I was always involved in different kinds of programs. It wasn't the same thing over and over. There was a real variety of things. And I'm the kind of person that likes to learn a little bit about a lot of things. So that was sort of an offshoot from what I did. But so just a couple of examples. So for one program that was very successful, and we got a lot of publicity for, was there, Pennsylvania is one of the leading food processing states in the country. But one of the interesting things about it is, while people think of, oh, well, of course, Hershey Foods or M&M, or Tasty Cake down in Philadelphia, which is a regional snack manufacturer, the reality is that it's a very fragmented market, and it's very mostly small companies, a lot of small companies, and they kind of have regional loyalties. And then the food industry itself is very different. Meat processors are their needs are very different from dairy processors, which are very different from companies that bake things, which are different from confectioners. So, but the thing so we had a really so these companies came to us, and because we were developing the only food science program outside of University Park at our campus. And so companies were saying, hey, we have some needs here, but we had to really determine what was what was something that was of interest to all the companies, and that was quality. And there's a lot of regulations that companies are responsible for meeting, and so it was meeting regulatory requirements, treating employees. So we created a consortium that had times a change, but probably 20 plus companies in central Pennsylvania that we work with. We got grant funds of different sorts from the state of Pennsylvania to help support that, and they were matched with industry dollars. And that program went on for well over 10 years. And we trained a lot of people, created a lot of educational resources, videos, and things like that that companies could show their employees. And I really felt like we made a very significant impact with that program. We've been offering another program as a practical nursing program, which is really the entry level of the nursing education. And there's a real shortage, particularly in long-term care institutions, for people. And so that was an opportunity for Penn State, again, through its regional network. We worked with several of the campuses. It was pretty expensive to invest in developing a curriculum and hiring faculty and putting in place the things that were required to get approval from the state. But we've been doing that, and over the past 10 years that we've been offering the program or so. And also we met a need in the workplace, which was for people who were working but wanted to go to school. So it was a part-time program. They went nights, they did their clinicals, they do their clinicals on weekends, and they finish in 18 months. And so we've now had literally hundreds of people go through that program, and they're now working in local nursing homes and primarily, but also home health agencies, and even in some hospitals. We did a lot of technology training programs, a lot of certificates teaching people on skills that they needed to remain in their jobs or to upgrade, using software packages like AutoCAD. We have an AutoCAD certificate, we have a project management certificate. We developed a certificate on programmable logic controllers, and all of those I kind of looked at as annuities. We had to invest a little bit to create those, but once created, every year, they're generating income back to the campus. So they were very successful at a variety of levels. We have a construction management program. Again, a lot of the companies in the area that build houses and do renovations and whatnot are smaller. They're probably less than 100 people, and so we had a program that could help them develop internally their estimators and construction managers and folks like that. And then kind of a bit of a different thing, we also have a winemaking certificate. Pennsylvania has really developed over the last 20 years or so of really significant winemaking industry, a lot of wineries, but again, very small. And a lot of the folks kind of learned by working somewhere, and they needed to formalize that education, and we provided a certificate that allowed them to do that. And the last thing I'll just mention is as I mentioned before, that afternoon this summer, I was sweating carrying books into a classroom. A program I'm really very proud of is we developed English as a second language certificate program for teachers. There's been a really significant increase in the number of English language learners moving into schools, and teachers just were very frustrated. They didn't know how to work with the students. In some cases, these students were being placed into special ed classes because they didn't know what else to do with them. And these were, by and large, bright kids, and they wanted to learn. So the university responded to that need and created the certificate and literally trained hundreds of teachers. And so that was over a period of about 10, 15 years. And again, that was one I was really, really proud of. And we actually connected, we partnered with the University of Puerto Rico, University of Turabo, to the certificate courses we offered, then they accepted into their master's program, and they had gotten permission from the Pennsylvania Department of Education to offer their masters here in Pennsylvania because there was no other similar program like that. And so again, between us and working with Tarabo, it was just a win-win program all the way around. So very proud of that.
Wow, that's a wide variety of things, developing people to take care of the elderly and long-term care. I think you've got a common theme, like industrial processes, either the food industry or any other industrial process. And then you got these last items that you mentioned. How do you envision the future of talent development in a highly competitive working environment, in highly developed competitive working environment?
Well, that's a $1 million question there. And so I did think, pretty long and hard about that. So I'm going to answer, hopefully this is not going to sound too confusing, but I'm going to answer it from a couple of different perspectives. One is making better use of technology to meet those limited demands that traditional methods of delivery can't really meet. And this also kind of anticipates the question on online distance education, but for instance, with some of the certificate programs I had referred to earlier, we would collaborate with other campuses to use video, where one campus might have 3 students, another one might have 5, another one might have 6. And so you could combine small numbers from from a wide variety of geographic areas. And the campuses might be 50, 60 miles apart, and meet those needs. Each learner could get the course instead of having the class canceled because there was insufficient enrollment. And then each campus shared the income based on the number of students they had, and shared the expenses also likewise on based on the number of enrollments they have. So everybody could make a little bit of money and cover their costs, and we could meet the need there. And then in certain cases, depending on where the campuses were located, if the course went over 7 weeks, there might be a home campus where the instructor might be delivering the instruction for 3 or 4 of the weeks, but then oftentimes that instructor would travel to another campus where there were students to meet live with him. So there was a little more personal interaction there. So that's kind of an example, I think, where we're able to use the a technology there. And Penn State is, again, I'll talk a little bit more about, has been very good has been a real leader in developing supporting instructional design. So with these instructors, we wouldn't just stick them in front of a camera and say, okay, now teach these people at remote locations. We did a lot of development with them to help them prepare, and then also to support, because it's a different way to teach, obviously. So that's one thing. I guess another part of it was just, I'm sorry, getting back to that is, I think the university has done a great job with undergraduate and graduate classes with using instructional technology. It really started in many cases with the World Campus, which was the online unit of the university, where most of the instructional design was taking place there. But then there was a realization that the university could get a better return on the investment they were making in this, the creation of these digital materials, if they also collaborated with the campuses, where some of the same material could be used in a face-to-face class as in an online. So there's really been a blurring of how instruction is delivered. Paul, as you are very well known, you've been a very big supporter of that. And I think from a non-credit standpoint, that opportunity has sort of been overlooked a little bit, but it really provides an opportunity to address that issue that I referenced earlier, in terms of trying to provide specific outcomes and ways of measuring outcomes that you can't do, just in a regular classroom there. So I think that's kind of wandering around a little bit. And the other thing that really supports it, I'm probably not doing this in the best way possible or the most logical sequence, but we really need to, when I talked about earlier that part of the role of continuing education is to collaborate and to reach out to the community, is I think that's really, what's really needed is a new way to do that, and a broader way to do that, that allows companies to better access the knowledge that's inherent in the university, and also makes it easier for the faculty within the university to better understand what the needs of industry are, so students are better prepared and there can be a real sharing. So there was a gentleman that came in and was hired by the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences. His name is Monty Alger, and he had a long career in research, primarily with air products. And they hired him to kind of come in and say, how do we better interface with our clients? And Monty kind of came in and looked around and said, why do you people do things the way you do them? They don't make a lot of sense. You really ought to look at new ways of trying to do things. And universities are fairly conservative, and have a long history of acting as they do. So Monty, I think, has had some success within his own department, chemical engineering, in terms of having new ways to address working with companies. But I think if the university were to adopt his ideas a little more broadly, it would be a real benefit to the university, and it would be a real benefit to continuing education. It will allow us to better tap into that knowledge that resides within the university and apply it in new ways, just beyond educating undergrad and graduate students.
Well, thank you, Walt. As you were talking, I remember that we launched the MBA program with Great Valley at Penn State Berk, and you were behind it, pushing that idea. The other is the digital learning network that you alluded to, that is taking advantage of the number of students in the same class but scattered around the state. So but those were ideas that today you could do them. Well,
I think part of this is trying to be more efficient, both on the corporate side and on the university side. Right now it's sort of, there's just a distance between the industry and education, and there's reasons for that, but there's a lot of guesswork. Well, I think perhaps the companies want to learn about a particular topic, or want to learn about a particular topic in a certain way, and I think companies likewise make some assumptions. Well, this is what the university is going to teach our employees, and those don't always match. So I think if there's a better way that we could work more closely and sit down with them to better understand what the needs, what are their priorities, we could focus less on trying to guess what it is that they want, and more on knowing what they want and how to develop programs that will meet those needs. That and I believe this could be done, that really would be a benefit to a wide variety of companies. And then if a particular company wanted to customize that further, that knowledge to their needs, well, they could do that. They could contract with university or some other agencies or organizations to really kind of take a generic body of knowledge and then make it specifically applicable for what they're doing. And again, really build in through assessments, are people learning what we want them to learn? And, we also know that, everyone learns at different levels. The model has always been, course is 30 hours long. Everybody sits in the course for 30 hours. Well, maybe some people need 40 hours, and maybe some people can get it in 20. So I think we could build in some greater satisfaction, both on the learner's part and on the customer's part, if that happens to be a company, if we could, build in those kinds of things. But it's not that easy. Obviously, it's, the more sophisticated you make something, the more expensive it is. And, where do you get that money to do that? Where does that investment capital come from? And that was a battle that, we kind of, or a barrier or an obstacle we generally ran into. And, sometimes a company would say they were interested in something, and then and say, well, do you want to, help pay for the development of this? And oftentimes they would, they weren't that committed to it there. So.
Well, thank you, Walt. This is a very timely conversation, though, for Unikemia. Unikemia is mostly a professional development school, and it's actually a continuing education organization. That's what it is. So you're bringing up topics that are of relevance to Unikemia. Let's switch gears a little bit. You had under your supervision the Berk's Launchbox, an event Penn State initiative in the city of Reading to promote economic growth via new ventures, by promoting entrepreneurs. What were the keys to its success? I say it's a success because I've been volunteering as a coach for the Test Idea Lab for the Launchbox, and we had five companies participating, five startups, and I think the team in the Launchbox is doing a great job. I mean, they're really, really good. So there you go, Walt.
Well, yes, Paul. I think one of the things I feel really fortunate in my career. One thing is I feel fortunate, and it was totally unplanned. I retired right when the pandemic hit, which was a really good time to retire. But the other thing is, I think I finished up with a couple of programs that I felt really proud to be part of, and none more so than the creation of the Berk's Launchbox. And there's a lot of factors for why that has been successful, and clearly it has. I mean, you now have an endowment that local has, raised through local money that was raised at the university is matched to support it, which is wonderful because, now there's funds there that it's going to support its ongoing efforts, and won't really be subject to potential, if there's other larger budget issues within the university that, support might get cut back from. But I think it's like in any successful venture, it's just really having the right people, and having the right people having a shared vision for, what is to be accomplished and what we want to accomplish. And I think it just came back to when Dr. Eric Barron, the recently retired president of the university, suggested this program. I mean, I kind of about jumped out of my shoes because I thought, wow, this is great. This is wonderful. This is an opportunity for the university to on a broad basis, to really make a big commitment to something outside the traditional education classroom that could have significant benefit to communities across the state, to the state as a whole. And there was a paradigm or a protocol kind of put in place for how each campus could participate. The opportunity was there. But the interesting thing to me was, and this happened when I was, one of the things I should have mentioned earlier was I was director of continuing education at Penn State Berks, one campus for 35 years. But then for a period of time, very close to the end of my career, I was also had statewide responsibilities. So I was kind of a liaison and a leader, provided some leadership for all my colleagues across the state, while also still working as director at the Berks campus. So I got to be involved with campuses all across the state that were looking to put in this program. And I was really struck early on by how the fact that at a lot of campuses, the leadership at the campus didn't recognize what this opportunity was, didn't look at this gift, theoretically, that President Barron was providing $50,000 a year for 3 years as startup, with additional central resources being provided. And so frankly, not every campus, in fact, maybe only half of them, really took good advantage of what was trying to be done. But the leadership at the campus, Dr. Hilkirk recognized this and made it a priority, and he got behind it. Paul, your involvement was critical, and you took a lot of heat from some of the faculty that weren't sure, why are we doing this? This is something outside the campus. This is outside the classroom. We should be focused just on our students. But clearly you understood that if we can benefit the community, it's going to benefit our students as well. And so your leadership was important. The faculty, we had some really good faculty support, and just as important, at some of the campuses, there were actually faculty who I think really kind of thwarted the whole attempts by campus to get involved. And that was not the case at our campus. Janelle Larson, when she was the division head of engineering, business, and computing, she did a really nice job in the background of working with the faculty to say, hey, this is important. Even if you don't understand it, it's not going to interfere with anything that you're doing, and you'll see long term. So I think that was really, really important that we had that leadership all across the board. And then we had support through other academic units. The development folks were phenomenal in terms of helping to raise money for it. Even business operations, Kim Berry's folks, in terms of at our off-campus site, going down and installing lights and moving furniture, and it was never a question like, that's not our job, we're not sending folks down there. 100% involved with what was going on. And then probably you alluded to it, maybe the most key were to a certain extent, it was just good fortune of selecting the people that were on my staff that really kind of carried out the plans once we got them a little more focused, and once we had a plan for moving ahead. Just have done great work, and really have felt a lot of ownership for the program, and felt comfortable giving feedback. And we changed direction at certain times. We changed focus based on what they were hearing from people that were trying to take advantage of what was going on there. So I don't know if that is totally answers your question or not, but
no, it does. It does, because what I hear is that you envision, or you view the Berk's Launchbox as a unifying project, a project that brought everybody together, including the community. It's a very powerful initiative. And I was at I attended the Retirees Luncheon this past week, and Erica Conco was presenting the Launchbox. And it was really interesting, very exciting. But one thing that Erica did not mention, and I asked the question, how is the Launchbox funded? Because I knew it had to be in the back of the minds of the people there. And then Erica, of course, said that an endowment had been created, and the Launchbox is self-funded. It doesn't use general funds. So it is it's a great initiative. Anyways, we move on to our next question, and this is a kind of a question to reflect on. Is 100% online education, distance learning, the future of professional development in places like Penn State? Is that what it is going to be? 100% online?
Well, I'm not a futurist, and the future depends, I guess, to a certain extent on how far out into the future you're looking at. Clearly, there's some technologies that are being developed right now that are going to change even further how we think of education and how education is delivered. But I think the real key is to look at not the delivery is important, but I think really the focus, and I think universities had this, and Paul, you clearly saw this, is how do you use technology to enable education? And so the digital world offers so many opportunities to customize and to give people opportunities. If they take a quiz and they fail a particular question, to then dive down deeper and better understand what is preventing them from understanding the concept, and then mastering that, and then coming back. So clearly a lot of that is going to be online. But at the same time, I think if there's something we've learned from the pandemic, it's that people are social. They're social, and even within the online world, they're always looking to ways to create opportunities for people to build communities, and you can clearly do that in online education. But at the same time, just again, we're clearly into my opinion here, so I want to stress that. I think
Well,
it's
I'm
going to be
asking for
important to
your
have.
opinion, Walt.
Yeah, right. I think it's going to be important to provide opportunities for people to get together, even if it's just video, and even if it's local opportunities. So I think and again, as you talked about in the beginning, Paul, you mentioned all of the campuses. I don't think university necessarily has really looked as well as it could as, how do we leverage these physical locations, and how do we merge them with these opportunities and the needs that are out there that really kind of involve distributed, maybe that's the best term, I didn't use that earlier, but the distributed learners, where maybe something is online, but then people come to a particular campus to get some hands-on instruction in terms of using equipment, and whether it's labs or whatever that might happen to be. I thought a lot about that with our programmable logic controller program, because we had some really great equipment that a lot of campuses didn't have. So is there a way that we could have redesigned that so that you package some of the content that people can learn, with an instructor, with some, working on their own, and then coming to a campus to use equipment. So I think it's going to always, there's going to be the need for people to get together based on also what the topic is, and what how best they can learn the material. And I do think there's those opportunities for people to get together is going to be important.
No, I agree, Walt. I mean, the combination of what we used to call blended learning,
Correct.
the
Yes.
mix of face-to-face and online, on the one hand, face-to-face to satisfy social needs and social enrichment, and then the online stuff. The other thing that just to mention it is that we're looking at a merger of technologies and learning that may bring changes. Like when you think about, some people are using how people learn. Some people learn using graphs, figures. Some people learn reading text. So this idea of using pattern recognition, which has been used for years in digital image processing, and mixed with artificial intelligence and with the computer capacity that we have today, that we might be able to offer learning in ways that we've not seen before. That's what and one of the startups that is in the launchbox right now. There are actually two startups, one dealing with autistic children and another dealing with children with dyslexic impairment, and that's an opportunity to bring technology to enhance learning. Anyways, we're getting.
No, I think you're. That's great observation, Paul. And I think it's interesting. It just occurred to me as you were talking about that, because it fits with what was going to be one of my closing comments. Was it's interesting that with all the money that is put into public education, there are still gaps. There are still areas where there are students that are being left behind. We talked about the autistic children or students with learning disabilities. And it's interesting that there are people who are turning to entrepreneurship because they see, here's a need. It's not being addressed. There are kids that are falling through the cracks. And I think entrepreneurship can be a way to address that. And one of the reasons for the entrepreneurship is, there's an opportunity. The school districts aren't really focused on, it's not their business. They're really not focused on, finding innovative ways to address a particular need, where these people are taking the initiative because they see it. They're driven by this. Hey, I want to help these students, and I think entrepreneurship is the way to perhaps do that. And the entrepreneurship part is if they can develop their case that hey, there's money out here that could be developed, could be raised, whether it's developing a program that meets a need that schools will then buy back, or whether parents individually will pay for it, or there's something else there. So the outside money can come in and invest in developing, taking that idea and making it applicable. And that was one of the ideas I was just going to throw out under closing comments, is that it's funny, sitting down here and preparing for this, been thinking about things I hadn't thought about like for 2 years, but it kind of came rushing back, some odd thoughts and ideas that I'd had in the past. And one of which was, I mentioned that one of the things that I think has prevented, or I saw prevented, Penn State continuing education from better meeting needs, educational needs that were out there, was the lack of investment capital. Because if you're talking about these programs, it's pretty sophisticated to try and develop customized kinds of things where you can develop assessments with, and you could develop something and then find out nobody really wants to enroll in it, and then you've lost a lot of money that the university really can't afford to spend on such a venture. But is there an opportunity here now for the university, or for other universities, members of your network, to approach people who are investing in companies and present this as, hey, what if we got outside investment money to help develop these programs, and then the investors could benefit from the delivery. Now, you need a different kind of investor, maybe someone more of a social entrepreneur who isn't particularly interested so much in making a lot of money for themselves, but for the betterment of a community. And also, perhaps if a program is very successful within continuing education at a place like Penn State, maybe the revenue, the income over expense, maybe that gets put into an endowment to help support undergrad students or something. I think it might be possible to make a case. Now, again, someone who's interested in philanthropy could just say, well, look, I'm just going to give you $100,000, and then I know you have it. But well, if you put that $100,000 in, and that yields hundreds of more thousands of dollars to ongoing, as I mentioned earlier, we create these annuities that generate other money that come back in. Is that a way to fund the development of some of these programs? I don't know, just a fun idea to throw out.
Well, thank you so much, Walt. We've gotten to the end of our conversation. On behalf of Unikemia and of myself, I want to thank you, Walt, for your very provoking thoughts on continuing ed and distance learning. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Paul. And as you know, I was always very provocative at Penn State, so I'm glad I was able to be provocative here today as well. So thanks again for the opportunity. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.